Welcome in Numismatics Hub, the hub of rare coins and currency notes. Let's start. The year 2014 carried with it a sense of quiet innovation in the numismatic world. In the midst of an ever-evolving series of commemorative issues, the United States Mint released the Great Sand Dunes National Park Quarter, part of the celebrated America the Beautiful series. The coin was struck at several facilities including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Each bore the hallmark of precision expected from the U.S. Mint. The reverse design showcased a father and son playing in the sand near a creek, set against the majestic backdrop of the park's towering dunes and rugged mountains. But within the Denver batch, a limited number of these coins harbored something that would eventually stir the hearts of collectors everywhere, an elusive error that evaded detection during minting. Unlike blatant errors that cause immediate rejection, this one was subtle, insidious even. It manifested in a faint but definitive doubling on the obverse. The profile of Washington's neck bore a shadow, barely perceptible to the untrained eye. The D-mint mark itself looked slightly skewed, leaning in defiance of its assigned position. What caused this anomaly remained a mystery, but seasoned numismatists speculated that a misalignment in the hub during the initial striking phase may have been responsible. It wasn't just a mechanical failure. It was a moment where art and machinery miscommunicated, and in that fragile disconnect, a rarity was born. In a small town in Missouri, a seasoned collector named Vernon stumbled across a roll of Denver-minted 2014 quarters purchased from a local bank. He had no expectations, no rumors guiding his interest, just a quiet instinct honed by decades of sorting through America's change. As he laid each coin beneath the lens of his magnifier, something caught his eye. The glint off Washington's collarbone wasn't quite right. The contours appeared doubled, not dramatically, but enough to warrant a second look. Vernon squinted, adjusted the lamp, and then gasped. He had seen doubling before, on the famous 1955 Lincoln cent, and again on a lesser-known 1972 quarter, but this was different. Subtler. Smarter. Like a whisper in metal. He didn't scream or announce his discovery online. Vernon was a patient man. He cross-referenced coin databases, consulted with regional collectors, and even sent high-resolution images to a grading service under a pseudonym. The preliminary assessments returned cautiously optimistic responses. Experts agreed it was a genuine double die-obverse, a DDO, but this particular configuration was undocumented. The Denver Mint had not acknowledged such an error. That secrecy, that absence of official record, only increased the allure. It was as though the coin itself had chosen to go unnoticed, hiding in plain sight among millions. Months passed, and Vernon began to notice something peculiar. Rumors of a new DDO on the 2014 Great Sand Dunes quarter were trickling into online forums and backroom collector groups. A few others reported similar anomalies, but none as sharp or consistent as the one in Vernon's possession. He sent his coin in for professional grading. It came back MS68, red-brown. But more importantly, it bore the label, 2014 D quarter DDO obverse, variety unknown. That final phrase held power. It whispered of potential, of future discovery, of historical revaluation. The coin's value didn't explode overnight. At first, dealers offered a few $100s, then a few thousand as awareness grew. By 2016, it had appeared in one private auction and fetched a modest yet respectable sum. But this was only the beginning. As the rarity of the error became more widely acknowledged and certified varieties remained in single digits, interest ballooned. Collectors with deep pockets began to hunt the 2014 D quarter with surgical precision, combing through bags and rolls, searching for the elusive shadow of Washington's double jawline. The Great Sand Dunes coin, once valued for its aesthetic tribute to a national park, had taken on a second identity. It was no longer just a coin. It was a ghost in the machine, a whisper of imperfection in a system defined by consistency. Each year added more prestige to Vernon's find. The prices fluctuated with market demand, but the trend was unmistakable. By 2019, the top-known specimen had changed hands for over $24,000 in a private collector's deal. The whispers grew louder. Was there more to the error than doubling? A second look revealed that in some specimens, The mountain range in the background of the reverse also bore a strange warping, as if the die had degraded mid-production. This revelation shifted the narrative. What was once thought to be a singular obverse error now hinted at a broader minting failure. Theories flooded the community. Some believed the entire die set used during a specific shift in the Denver facility might have been misaligned. Others suggested experimental planchets were accidentally used, a theory bolstered when a metallurgical test on one coin revealed a slightly anomalous copper-nickel ratio. Still within tolerance, but suggestive of an alternate source or batch. In 2021, a new twist emerged. A second collector from Oregon submitted a 2014 D Sand Dunes quarter for grading. It came back with a surprise. Besides the now famous obverse doubling, the coin also exhibited a partial collar strike, resulting in a slightly off-round shape. This unexpected variation reignited interest. What if these weren't isolated errors, but part of a broader class of experimental strikes or overlooked machine failures? Grading companies began taking the 2014 D issues more seriously, and the label variety unknown was replaced in some instances with a new designation, DDO001 Denver Hub Shift Class 4. This recognition was pivotal. With the error now acknowledged by top grading authorities, prices spiked. Vernon's coin, the pioneer of them all, was appraised at over $42,000 during an expert review in 2022. By early 2024, auction estimates began ranging between $58,000 and $76,000 depending on condition and clarity of the error. A specimen discovered with both obverse doubling and reverse distortion fetched a staggering $81,000 at heritage auctions. The market had spoken. The error's physical characteristics continued to fascinate. Beyond the doubling on Washington's profile, some coins showed signs of die fatigue, small radial lines appearing in the background fields. Others hinted at over-polishing, with certain facial features appearing ghostly or eroded. Every new variation was a treasure map. For collectors, it wasn't just about ownership, it was the thrill of the hunt, the possibility that in a roll of common quarters, history might repeat itself. Yet, amidst all this chaos and valuation, an overlooked detail emerged. In 2023, a numismatics researcher cross-compared multiple known errors and found a curious correlation. Many of them shared a die marker near the base of the mountain ridge, a tiny dot almost invisible without magnification. It was theorized that this dot may have been a diagnostic marker from a misused master hub or a maintenance test imprint that was never meant to go public. If true, then the error wasn't accidental at all. It was intentional, or at least semi-intentional, an internal process gone rogue. That was the final twist. What began as a collector's lucky find evolved into a community-wide obsession, then matured into a certified variety with escalating value. But this new theory, that the mint itself may have seeded the anomaly, whether knowingly or by operational oversight, turned the entire saga upside down. It was no longer just about value or rarity. It was about trust, about transparency, and about the fine line between error and experiment. As it stands now, the 2014 D Great Sand Dunes quarter holds a special place in modern numismatics. Its story continues to unfold, its value continues to rise, and its legend, born from a whisper of imperfection, remains one of the most compelling coin narratives of the 21st century. The year 2020 brought with it global uncertainty, but within the world of numismatics, it also introduced a small piece of metal that would quietly challenge the very boundaries of coin collecting. The Salt River Bay National Historical Park and Ecological Preserve Quarter, part of the America, the Beautiful Quarters program, entered circulation with a purpose far greater than many initially imagined. Minted to commemorate the Virgin Islands' vibrant natural and cultural legacy, the coin depicted a young red mangrove tree rising from the water, symbolizing renewal and ecological hope. Produced at the Philadelphia and Denver mints, the coin was released to the public in early June, and as collectors sifted through their pocket change or bank rolls, few were prepared for what would surface. As history often proves, errors have a way of escaping the most rigorous quality control systems, often due to the very complexity of high-volume coin production. Somewhere between the pressure of rapid minting and the subtle variances in planchet alignment, an anomaly occurred on a batch of the 2020 Salt River Bay quarters. It wasn't an error that screamed at the naked eye but rather whispered, subtle, almost teasing. A faint doubling along the lettering, an irregularity in the rim's finish, and most bizarrely, what appeared to be an odd rotation in the coin's reverse design when flipped. While these seemed minute on their own, together, they hinted at something more peculiar beneath the surface. For one collector, a middle-aged man named Calvin who had inherited his father's coin albums but had only recently taken an active interest, this whisper was impossible to ignore. Calvin had never been the sort to obsess over minor mint quirks, but a conversation in a coin forum thread about inconsistencies in the Salt River Bay quarter intrigued him. He had acquired a few rolls from his local bank and began examining them methodically one rainy evening, illuminated only by a desk lamp and growing anticipation. When he stumbled upon the anomaly, a quarter with a dramatically off-center strike, and what seemed to be a die crack running across the mangrove's trunk, he held his breath. He flipped it again and again, unsure if his eyes deceived him. The rim wasn't fully formed. The edge lettering appeared misshapen. And then the final detail. Roosevelt's profile had a faint doubling, but not in the traditional areas. It extended across the jawline and up into the hair. It was uncanny. Calvin brought the coin to a local appraisal event hosted by a regional coin dealer. The expert's eyes lit up with recognition and wonder. He confirmed that the coin featured not one, but multiple minting errors, off-center strike, die crack, and what he suspected might be the beginning signs of a rare color clash. The die crack, in particular, extended in a near-perfect arc, almost resembling a branch curling into the tree, adding to its visual uniqueness. But what shocked both of them most was the mint mark. Despite coming from a Denver roll, this particular coin had a misprinted P mint mark, slightly distorted and blurred. Word began to spread. Calvin posted detailed images on online forums and numismatic groups. Veteran collectors chimed in, some skeptical, some stunned. Within weeks, the coin had gained a name in underground circles, the Ghost Mangrove Quarter. Speculation ran rampant. Was this an isolated anomaly or the product of a rogue die? Auctions were proposed. Comparisons were drawn to legendary misprints of earlier decades. What had begun as a quiet discovery was now rippling through the collector's world with unsettling energy. The coin's value began to climb. Calvin initially resisted offers, choosing instead to research its origin and monitor the buzz. At first, offers came in for a few $100s. But as more coin experts began validating the coin's authenticity and rarity, prices ballooned. A private offer came through at $8,000, which Calvin refused. The coin was quickly drawing parallels to iconic era coins of the past: the 1955 double-die Lincoln cent, the 2004 Wisconsin extra leaf quarter. Soon, the Ghost Mangrove Quarter became a modern legend in its own right. The market, driven by a mixture of scarcity, aesthetics, and historical symbolism, continued to swell. By late 2022, as inflation and economic uncertainty loomed, collectors turned toward rare tangible assets. The Salt River Bay era coin, with its oddities and perfect storm of traits, became a magnet. Calvin's specimen sold privately in early 2023 to a collector in Florida for $34,000. By mid-2024, another example with similar features, though missing the die crack, surfaced and sold at auction for $27,500. What began as pocket change had transformed into an artifact of error and elegance. Beyond the monetary rise was the deeper realization of what the coin symbolized. The 2020 Salt River Bay Quarter was released during a global pandemic, a time of upheaval and isolation. Its mangrove imagery, roots digging into uncertain soil, branches reaching skyward, echoed the resilience of a world struggling to endure. The fact that such a coin would contain layers of error, imperfections embedded within a message of strength, struck a philosophical chord for many collectors. It wasn't just a misprint, it was a metaphor. Physically, the coin's most unique element remained the die crack across the mangrove. It fractured the image in a way that was almost poetic, like nature adapting to its scars. The off-center strike gave it a tilted, skewed presence, like it refused to conform. The strange mint mark raised speculation that a transitional die, intended for Philadelphia, had been mistakenly used in Denver. Some experts debated whether this was a hybrid error. Others argued that such a mistake in a modern mint was nearly impossible, unless someone at the mint had been rushed or distracted due to pandemic staffing shortages. The idea that the global crisis had somehow contributed to this minting anomaly only deepened its intrigue. The twist came when a retired mint employee reached out anonymously through a collector's blog. He confirmed that, during the spring of 2020, several equipment recalibrations had occurred at the Denver Mint due to staffing gaps and new health regulations. A handful of dies were mistakenly rotated or mismatched during production. While none of these discrepancies had been officially recorded in the U.S. Mint's logs, they might explain the oddities. According to his account, only one batch, approximately 4,000 coins, might have been affected before the error was caught. Of those, fewer than a dozen had been verified by the collector community. This revelation reignited the fire. Prices soared once more, and Calvin, watching from the sidelines, felt an odd mix of nostalgia and disbelief. He had almost spent that quarter at a gas station. Now, it had birthed a story that would outlive him. What made the Ghost Mangrove Quarter so fascinating wasn't just the minting flaw. It was the convergence of time, chance, and curiosity, a tiny sliver of metal bearing witness to a fractured moment in history. As 2025 approaches, only 9 confirmed specimens exist with similar traits. 3 are in private collections. 1 sits in a display case at a numismatic museum in Chicago. The rest remain elusive, possibly lying dormant in piggy banks, cash registers, or change jars waiting for another sharp-eyed Calvin to spot them. For now, the estimated value for a near-perfect Ghost Mangrove Quarter with all 3 primary errors ranges between $38,000 and $94,000 depending on grade and market momentum. And in the quiet world of coins, where silence often guards significance, that single mangrove still whispers to those willing to listen closely. The year 2005 saw the release of the West Virginia Quarter, part of the popular 50-state quarters program launched by the United States Mint. This coin, honoring the Mountain State, carried a detailed reverse design showcasing the New River Gorge Bridge, a majestic testament to both natural beauty and engineering prowess. Minted in Denver and Philadelphia, millions were struck and distributed, quickly becoming commonplace in circulation. But somewhere, tucked inside the humming machinery of the Denver Mint, an anomaly took shape, a minute error, overlooked in the churn of production, destined to ripple across decades. Coins are products of precision, the result of high-speed die presses and careful metallurgical balance. Yet, even in such meticulously monitored environments, mistakes slip through. On one otherwise unremarkable Denver morning, a subtle misalignment, perhaps caused by die fatigue or debris between the die and planchet, led to an unusual strike on a few West Virginia quarters. This aberration was unnoticeable to the average eye, easily dismissed as pocket change. It would remain hidden, uncelebrated, until a curious collector stumbled upon it in a coin roll. Jake had been collecting for years, his fascination ignited as a teenager after finding a 1943 steel penny in his grandfather's drawer. His routine never changed, combing through rolls of coins from local banks, inspecting each with a jeweler's loupe, logging details meticulously. One evening, while sorting through a box of state quarters, he paused. The bridge on this particular 2005 D coin seemed slightly off. The engraving looked faint in places, and the rim appeared irregular. It wasn't glaring. In fact, it was the kind of subtlety that would evade all but the most trained eye. He held the coin under bright light, turned it, squinted. Then, as he traced the rim, he noticed it. A partial color error, combined with a weak strike. The coin seemed off-center by the barest margin, and the devices on the reverse, particularly the trees bordering the bridge, were ghost-like, lacking the usual definition. His heart picked up speed. He'd seen errors before, clipped planchets, double dies, even broad strikes, but nothing like this. It was both subtle and significant. If verified, it could represent a rare variety. Jake consulted online forums, uploaded magnified images, and sought expert opinions. Reactions were mixed at first. Some dismissed it as machine doubling. Others urged further analysis. A respected numismatist, Dr. Langley, finally weighed in. He identified the strike as a combination of color slippage and a misaligned obverse die, creating what he dubbed a bridge ghost error. Due to the incomplete render of the New River Gorge structure, That was the beginning. News spread in numismatic circles. The term, bridge ghost, stuck. Suddenly, collectors scoured their hoards for the elusive coin. Only a handful emerged. Fewer than a dozen confirmed examples surfaced over the next year, and each displayed slight variances, making cataloging difficult and adding to their mystique. Some theorized a short-lived press malfunction. Others believed it was a rogue batch during a transition in die sets. Regardless, the rarity was now undisputed. The value evolution was slow at first. Jake received modest offers, a few $100s here and there. But as awareness grew, so did the stakes. One coin fetched $1,200 at a small auction. Another, in near mint condition, soared past $3,000 on a collector platform. The coin story gained traction. It appeared in niche magazines, then in Coin World, and eventually found its way into the hands of television appraisers. Each mention fueled the chase. Dealers began referencing the Ghost Bridge dime as a sister rarity, mislabeling it, adding confusion that further energized discussions. The error specifics became the subject of blogs, YouTube breakdowns, and debate. Was it a fluke? Was it intentional sabotage? Did it reflect systemic issues at the Denver Mint? Theories multiplied, each adding a layer to the unfolding drama. The coin's physical characteristics only added to its allure. Unlike most errors, it wasn't immediately dramatic. No glaring cracks, no grotesque off-centering. Instead, its subtlety was its signature. The bridge's faint outline created a spectral silhouette, especially under angled light. The trees faded like a memory at twilight, the text slightly off-register but still legible. It was a coin that required attention, demanded care. It refused to shout. Instead, it whispered, "Collectors love a mystery." And this coin offered one in spades. How did such a precise mint allow this anomaly? Why were so few struck before the dies were corrected? The unexpected twist came 2 years later, in 2007, when a retired mint employee anonymously posted in a numismatic forum. He claimed knowledge of the error's origin, alleging that a faulty color die had been reused after refurbishing, creating inconsistent pressure during planchet striking. The die had passed inspection due to budget constraints and staffing shortages, a detail that reflected the mint's growing pains during its busiest years. This confession, though unverified, added a human layer to the story. Suddenly, it wasn't just about a mechanical error. It was about decisions, constraints, oversights. It painted the Denver Mint as fallible, pressured, reactive. That nuance only elevated the coin's appeal. It became a symbol of transition, of a system strained by demand and limited by resources. The Ghost Bridge wasn't just a mistake, it was an echo of a moment in minting history. As years passed, the market for the 2005 West Virginia era remained volatile. One specimen, verified and slabbed with a special Ghost Bridge label, sold for over $7,000 at an elite auction house. Others fetched lower, depending on condition and strike clarity. But one truth remained: the coin had transformed from an everyday pocket piece into a legend. Jake, now a known figure in niche collecting circles, often spoke at events. He never sold his original find. He kept it in a velvet case, occasionally bringing it out to illustrate the thrill of discovery, the power of detail. His journey from obscurity to authority inspired a new wave of collectors, reminding everyone that hidden value still lurks in the most mundane places. And still, no official acknowledgement ever came from the mint. No press release, no confirmation. The 2005 West Virginia quarter remains unlisted in most formal era registries, existing in the liminal space between anomaly and artifact. But among collectors, its story is gospel, its presence an instant conversation starter. The bridge it depicts continues to span the New River, massive and unwavering. But on those rare error coins, the structure is frail, spectral, as if passing through dimensions. The contrast between intention and outcome, design and reality, makes the coin more than just metal. It becomes metaphor. And in that space between expectation and imperfection, a legacy is born.